Hey, Nat. I want you to do something for me, alright? Go on Amazon.
Alright.
And I want you to type in BBW, as in Big Bone Women.
Where is this going?
BBW wooden baseball bat.
Alright, okay. I'll click on the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, now what?
Scroll down. Did you notice it?
A solid red burgundy bandana and some barbed wire. And some customer reviews saying that they're making custom Lucille's.
Customers who bought this baseball bat also bought silver barbed wire, burgundy's red bandana. God, I love the internet. I fucking love the internet. This is just like when Mad Max Fury Road came out, and all these people are buying like this. There's a silver paint that you could use for like cake spray, and people are writing reviews like shiny and chrome. God, I love the fucking internet. I love everything about it.
Well, this all just goes to show you just how much of an impact the character of Negan from The Walking Dead has had. Despite
yeah, exactly. Yeah, how much people absolutely love that fucking character.
Exactly, and I mean, even you love the character, and you were never a fan of The Walking Dead.
I thought it was boring as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got to the first season and everything else. I'm just like, yeah, fuck. I get the premise, whatever.
Well, I mean, what exactly was it about the Negan episodes that made you want to watch them? Like,
He was just charismatic. He's the fucking comedian. He's Jeffrey Dean Morgan, for God's sakes.
I mean, like, before you knew about Negan, what made you want to watch the episodes with him in it?
Well, the fact that we watched them together. You were the one who was trying to get me to watch Walking Dead with you. Then when we got to the end of that one episode, like second from the last season, where the guy shot Daryl point blank, and you're screaming, Daryl! Daryl!
Well, this is something to consider, is that The Walking Dead I've been watching it since the beginning, and it got to the point... Yeah, I mean, essentially, it got to the point where I was like, you know what, as soon as Daryl dies, I'm out. But the thing is that ever since Negan came on the scene, I've kind of wanted to keep watching despite, Daryl's survival, because he's such a great character, and he's exactly what the show needed at that point.
A memorable villain. I mean, granted, I am not a fan of The Walking Dead. I haven't followed hardly any of it. So you can talk about, like, the cannibals and the governor and all the rest of those guys. Right over the top of my head. Mm-hmm. Not saying they're not memorable characters, it's just that they never caught my attention. But fucking, when Negan came out of that camper swinging his baseball bat like it's his big fucking dick, goddamn. I mean, no homo, but goddamn.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, the thing is that...
You got a baseball bat too, huh? Wink, wink.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got my own little Lucille here and there, but... But the thing is that...
the Lucille with a rabbit attachment.
The thing is that with Negan, I really want to hate him because of what he's done to, not so much Abraham, because I couldn't give a fuck about him, but Glenn. Glenn was there since the beginning, and he was one of my favorite characters. He was actually my favorite character until, the next episode where they introduced Daryl, because, Daryl's everyone's favorite character. Everyone loves Daryl. But when he died, that was like a punch in the gut. And I really wanted to hate Negan, but I couldn't. He's just so likable despite everything. Despite
being a fascist.
Yeah.
I mean, like, almost like a genuine fascist. Well, no, take it back. Not a fascist, a dictator. He is just the pure definition of a dictator. I mean, weren't you the one who's saying that he's kind of like Saddam Hussein?
Yeah, I mean, he has his, his methods are very harsh, but at the end of the day, he's dealing with very dangerous people, and he needs to, he needs to show them who's the boss, and he needs to keep them in line. That's why, everyone's saying, oh, why don't they just shoot Negan? And it's like, no, you can't do that, because as soon as you get rid of the person who's keeping all of these terrible people in line, they're gonna wreak havoc on, how many groups are there now? Like four groups that we know of.
You just have a bunch of marauders.
Exactly.
Versus a bunch of marauders who were scared shitless of some guy who, at least according to the comic books that I have read ever since, Negan walked onto the scene, I want to learn more about the character. Negan has his own set of values and rules according to the comic. If you rape a woman, he'll fucking knife you in the throat.
Well, I mean, exactly. It's exactly the same as, I mean, look at what happened when they ended up killing Saddam Hussein. Look at the trouble that's happened in those countries since. That's kind of what would happen if you took out Negan in The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the
power vacuum.
The thing is about Negan is that he's a very interesting character in that everything that he does, even though it's evil, in his mind, he's doing everyone a service almost.
Well, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean,
well, he's kind of let it get to his head a bit, but I mean, his main intention is, he does want to help people. This is just his warped way of doing it, is these protection rackets, and the power's kind of gotten to his head a little bit. And the thing is with Negan, his whole idea is that the only way that civilization can be rebuilt is if the strong look after the weak, if the strong take care of the weak, which goes against, rape, which is why in the comic books he is so against rape. He cannot stand it.
Mm-hmm.
He has zero tolerance for that shit, even when it's his own people doing it.
Yeah, exactly. But see, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I like Negan, not just as a villain, but I mean, in a lot of ways he's almost an anti-hero. I mean, you could disagree with his methods though, but he gets shit done, kind of like the Punisher in a lot of ways. Now, in the comic book, he even looks like the fucking Punisher. But the thing is, when Jeffrey Dean Morgan kind of walked into the scene, I mean, he's walking around and he's being a badass and threatening to kill people, right? Mm-hmm. But when you dig deeper into the character and you see like what he does and the rest of season 7 so far, at least, you see that there's a method to his madness that I actually really appreciate. I mean, I don't like the guy as far as his methods, but you can appreciate it, because didn't Rick and the rest of his crew like kill 30 of his men? Yeah.
I mean, essentially, if you think about it, Negan was extremely lenient.
Exactly. I mean, he could have killed everybody in front of the camper, but he's like, you know what, I'm gonna fuck one of you guys up because something's got to be set as an example. But then you guys are gonna be working for me. So basically, as far as Negan could tell, these guys Rick's crew are just a bunch of marauders.
Negan did what he had to do, to be honest. He's head of a very dangerous group of very unhinged people. You've seen what the kind of stuff that they do when they think Negan isn't around. How they take advantage of people, and in the comic book they even, sexually assault a couple of people. And in the show, some of them are just flat out dicks, like taking the mattresses from Alexandria and then just getting down the road slightly and just burning them. Just to be dicks.
And even beating the shit out of people for, a letter that says, go fuck yourself or something inside the container.
That wasn't even intended for them. But...
Right. I mean, yeah, there's a group of real hard asses that Negan is keeping in check, whether you want to admit it or not.
And if you think about it, Rick's group, they did kill a lot of their people. Negan needs to show them that he's going to get shit done about it. Otherwise, how does he look to them?
Essentially, Negan is kind of like almost like a biblical dictator. I mean, if you read back in like the Old Testament stuff, dangerous people, extremely dangerous times. A lot of the methodologies are outdated though, but it's effective.
Well, I mean,
it keeps people in line.
There's no big system of government to keep people in line, so this is, pretty much the only way to do it. The rules
it's
are
fucked
the
up,
same.
No doubt.
Exactly, and I mean, the thing with Negan is, again, he was extremely lenient, but to us, it seems like what he did was terrible, because obviously the people he killed, Glenn and Abraham, we were with those characters, especially Glenn, from the beginning of the series. And so when they died, it was a huge blow to us, but, again, and we don't know anything about the 30 people that Rick's group killed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the people that Rick's group killed could have been husbands or could have been fathers. I mean, you don't know who the fuck these people are. I mean, they could have been, they're just another group of survivors. And as far as Negan's concerned, Rick's group is a little terrorist cell that went out and killed a bunch of his people for little provocation yet. As far as, like, killing Glenn is obvious. Daryl went up and gave him a good sock in the fucking puss, and he had to make another example.
Yeah.
But as far as killing Abraham, I mean, that's the most logical thing to do. The apocalypse is treated like a fucking prison yard, right? And in prison, if you want to be top dog, you have to take out the toughest, meanest hombre. And of course, Abraham was the one who was given Negan the most, fuck you eye contact, and was the biggest and meanest looking of the group. So of course Negan's going to take him out first, because he's establishing the pecking order. And he fucks with Rick to the point where, he breaks Rick, and Rick is the group leader. And now Rick is essentially Negan's bitch to the point where he carries around Lucille whenever Negan hands it to him, instead of, as Nat said, the fans are like, well, why doesn't Rick fuck Negan up? It's like, well, what are you going to do? Negan's group has all the fucking weapons.
Well, I mean, the whole first episode of the season was specifically showed you how Negan gets control of Rick.
Yeah.
I mean, again, Rick's group killed 30 of his people, so he killed one of theirs. And then, Daryl punches him, and he can't let that slide. Again, he needs to keep this image of power in front of his men. He needs to show them that he's not going to take any shit, because he needs to, give off that image. He needs to assert his dominance. So yes, he kills someone else. Doesn't kill Daryl, because that would have caused way too much of a fan out backlash. And also, Glenn was supposed to die in that scene, so, R.I.P. Glenn. But even after that, there's still a little bit of defiance there. Rick says to him, I'm going to kill you. And he can't even let that slide, and so he tortures him to the point where he's breaking down. He almost cuts off his own son's arm. And it's a very sick, horrible scene to watch. You can tell the effect that it has on Rick, and he's pretty much broken.
Well, yeah, I mean, if someone's telling you have to cut off your own kid's hand, or everyone else dies in the group, and you're begging the guy, and the guy's like, all right, you know what? I'll be lenient. And that's nothing. That's what Negan has shown over and over again, is pure lenience towards everything that Rick's group has done. And again, it's really easy to point fingers and say this guy is bad, this guy is good, whether it's Rick or not. But there's a lot of complexity in what's going on, especially when you start reading into the comics. I mean, you could take Negan at face value. Especially the first couple episodes, it's like, Jesus Christ, who the hell is this biker douche, right? And then you start seeing, like, the episode where, Coral goes in and, shoots 6 of the people in the compound. And then Negan's like, here, I'll show you around, kid. And, doesn't kill the kid, but kind of shows him around. And in the comics, it's especially powerful because it shows the completely human side of Negan, which I'm not sure Jeffrey Dean Morgan really captured, because when I was reading the comics, or at least viewing them, I guess I projected a different type of mindset than was projected on the show. When Negan goes in and shows the wives, he's joking around with the kid, hey, check out all the tits and ass that I get, and I bet all the people in your little colony dress like pilgrims or some shit, and he's showing them this society he's kind of building, but then at the same time, one of his wives cheats with her old husband, and in the comic book, Negan's like, at least what I read into it, he's like, you could, I don't want you to cheat on me, but you could just, go back and work with the rest of your family. I mean, it's your option. You have the choice. Whereas in the TV show, there's a really, really sadistic slant.
It's almost like a threat rather than
it is because the way he conveys that threat is like, well, you could go back and work with your husband and your mom, and I'll find something especially horrible to do to you. I mean, that was the intent. That was the body language that Jeffrey Dean Morgan gave Negan, which is absent from the comic, which makes the comic Negan seem a lot more benevolent in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I think he does a very good job. He's very great at the sort of
he's charismatic as fuck. Yeah, I mean, have you seen him on these like female talk shows? I mean, the pussy's just dripping in the aisles when he walks in and starts swinging around a baseball bat full of like Christmas lights.
Well, those bitches are gonna have to get in line. But anyway,
well, if anything, he can keep his bitches in line, right?
Well, what I was gonna say is that Jeffrey Dean Morgan. He is very charismatic, and what he is very good at is showing the side of Negan, that's all about power play. It's, like that video you showed me by that guy, what was the name of it?
Charisma on Command?
Yeah, that one. And he's analysing everything that Jeffrey Dean Morgan does as Negan, and everything he does is very deliberate and very careful, and is all
establishes himself as the alpha male. He like steps up, has unbreaking eye contact, gets right in your face, smiles a lot. I mean, this guy is a guy who is literally swinging around his baseball bat, and by baseball bat I mean this other type of wood.
His little Lucille.
I don't know. I haven't checked, so.
But the thing is, it's the other and more complex stuff, and I think this is the problem with the show in general, is that it kind of washes over some of the more complex stuff in the comics. And I understand, I mean, the amount of viewers that The Walking Dead has, it's fucking astounding. I mean, even I didn't realize until I, looked it up to, do research for this episode. On average...
Research? Do we research this shit? I thought we just open our traps.
On average, The Walking Dead has 2, sometimes even 3 times the amount of viewers that Game of Thrones does. So that's a huge audience. I actually think it's like the most watched show on television or something. Most watched drama, at least. I think like Big Bang Theory might be higher. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, yeah. Lowest common denominator.
Well, this is the problem, is that The Walking Dead, because it has such a big audience, it needs to appeal to the lowest common denominator, and that means it can't really get too complex, because it, people. I mean, bottom line, a lot of people just aren't smart enough for that.
Well, that's a theory that when people... If you make something too stupid, people feel insulted. If you make something too smart, people feel stupid, and then they hate it just as much. There's a bell curve to what kind of audience you have to pander to, and it's very middle of the road. You want to appease like the broadest group of people.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I was going to say, but I think that's why Game of Thrones, it has a smaller audience, but the show itself is better. A lot of people don't watch it because it's very complex and it has a lot of layers, and people
they want titties and dragons.
They want like fast food television, right? Which is why Game of Thrones doesn't have as big of an audience, but it's a better show. The Walking Dead, as much as I love it, it's very diluted because it appeals to the lowest common denominator, and that is why there has been such a fan, well, not even a fan, but that is why there's been such a backlash over Negan, is because it's fucked with the dynamic. People can't handle the complexity of it. I would say the beginning... You gotta
have stock Disney villains and Disney heroes where they're absolute good versus absolute evil, right?
Well, I would say that the beginning of season 7, it was horrible to watch, and it was very traumatizing, but it was the slap in the face that the fans in the series needed. Because these past 2 seasons have been so utterly mind-numbingly boring, depressing, brooding. Every time you go on a list of, Walking Dead's greatest episodes, I would say a good 9 out of 10 of them happened before season 4.
Well, the thing is, I never got into the show either. Just because I saw the first season and I just couldn't be arsed, to be honest. Mm-hmm. From what I hear, and even from you say it's like such a downer, and we'll get to that in a bit though. But, Negan was kind of everything I wanted to see in a villain. I wanted to see someone who was, the Machiavellian alpha male, I wanted to see somebody who was the dictator who, underneath his rough exterior, he has like a heart. I mean, you saw how he treated Carl, right? He's making fun of him about the eye, and then Carl starts crying, and it's even more potent in the comic book, and Negan kind of realizes, what he's doing, and he apologizes to the kid.
Because he is
which is shocking.
He is genuinely sorry for causing that upset, because deep down, he does want to get along with people. He wants to be liked. This stems from his origin, where he was a baseball coach, or he was a gym teacher at high school, and he did actually try to form genuine, not Podesta level, but actual genuine connections with the kids.
Pizza parties.
Exactly, right. But no, he did actually try to form meaningful relationships with the kids, but because he was so extreme, and because he was, he gets carried away, and he hurts people, and whether he means to or not. And
well, again, he's trying to keep everything together. Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, he has this like almost like communistic community.
Well, he has this kind of affinity with kids. He, when you see it when he sees Judith, and he's, playing with her, and he actually seems kind of sweet when he's playing with her, until, that it takes a dark turn where he suggests that, what if I take over this place and kill your daddy, that sort of thing. But he seems like he genuinely has an affinity with kids. He's even trying to get some of his wives pregnant.
I think that's it too, is the way he takes Carl underneath his wing. It's almost like he's trying to adopt him in a way, trying to be like a father figure, or he's trying to turn him against his dad. One of the two.
This is something interesting as well, is that Carl is... This is the point in the series where I think Carl's actually going to become an interesting character, because yes, he's done some pretty, cool stuff in the past, but him as a character so far, he's kind of just been a one-note thing for a while now, and I think this is really going to test him, because he's kind of losing respect for his father, because he's seeing, how just browbeaten his dad is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of shifting more towards Negan, and he's kind of, in this sort of struggle of which side does he lean towards. He doesn't want to be evil like Negan is sometimes, but then he doesn't want to be weak like he sees his dad being sometimes.
It's like, the coming of age for a young man. You've tried to figure out who to emulate. For a long time, your dad is the be all end all of the world, and then you start to see, as you get older, you start to see some of the flaws of your own parents, and you start going, maybe this other figure is probably better worth emulating. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like, I don't know. I still think that there's issues with the way that Jeffrey Dean Morgan portrays Negan, because again, in the comic, where the wife cheats on him, and he's like, you could leave, but now we gotta pay a penalty. Your husband has to pay because he cheated, and he puts the iron to the husband's face. And in the comic, at least, again, this is my own interpretation, the way I read it, he's like, I don't ever want to do this shit again. I'm sick and tired of, in a way that's like, I'm sick and tired of doing this. Mm-hmm. This had better be the last time I have to do something so fucking horrible.
Again, he doesn't want to do it, but he needs to do it, because he needs to, he needs to assert the fact that he's not taking shit.
Exactly.
If he shows the slightest crack, then his image as a leader and as, almost a dictator is completely gone.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to really, really like redneck kind of analogy, I went grouse hunting once, and I shot like a grouse, like a big male grouse. The minute that the male grouse like fell to the ground, all of a sudden 2 other male grouse just jumped out of the fucking bushes and started attacking the shit out of it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, holy crap! I mean, there is this dog eat dog pecking order that I imagine exists when humanity is at its lowest.
Yeah.
And Negan needs to be strong. He needs to be the solid foundation. He needs to be completely... He needs to be like the Rock of Gibraltar. He needs to be a total, like, rock against the waves,
He's not the leader the saviors deserve, but he's the one they need.
Yes. But, again, in Jeffrey Dean Morgan's portrayal, when he's saying that, he has this sadistic smirk and he winks at Carl.
As if he's enjoying it, yeah.
As if he's actually genuinely enjoying this shit. And I think that's kind of the wrong attitude.
Well, it depends on when it is, because when he's bashing Glenn's head in, he actually does seem like he is enjoying it. But, again, as we said, he doesn't have any connection with those people, and he's doing it as a power play. This is actually genuinely showing how he truly feels to Carl, because it's almost like he's letting him in. He's, showing him the way his mind works and the way he treats people really who are in his group, kind of almost mentoring him.
Yeah, but there's also a lot to Negan that makes too much fucking sense, at least to me anyway. Like who was the asshole who was trying to usurp Rick during the pool game? Spencer. Yeah. I mean, he goes around this completely chicken shit way of trying to weasel in and take over Rick's place. Hey, Negan, if you kill Rick for me, I'll be your bitch, basically, right? And Negan has some warped sense of honor where he kills Spencer immediately, because it's like, you're if you're going to betray him, what's going to guarantee that you won't betray me later? But not only that though, but at the same time, Rick's own kid Carl shoots 6 of his guys trying to kill Negan, and not only does Negan, as he tells Rick right to his face, kill a guy who's trying to kill Rick, but also completely spares his own son despite this massive faux pas. I mean, you saw what happened when Daryl punched Negan and they bashed in Glenn's head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he lets it completely slide. I mean, he's setting himself up as a benevolent dictator.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you could say that it's a power play because he's saying to Rick, like, oh yeah, this time I let your son, get away with it.
Kill 6 of my guys.
Yeah, next time he might not be so lucky, sort of thing. Or he's just kind of shoving the fact that, him and Carl had that sort of thing together in his face, almost like he's flaunting their relationship. But I mean, the thing is with Negan, especially if you know his backstory, a lot of what he does makes sense. The fact that he was, a gym teacher and he worked with children, the fact that he tried to have kids with his wife but she couldn't have any, and the fact that he cheated on his wife and he felt really, really bad about it, and the tragic circumstances in which his wife died. And by the way, his wife's name is Lucille. Mm-hmm. Which gives a whole new sort of context to the baseball bat that he carries around. And
his psychosis.
Well, I mean the baseball bat, when Rosita pulls out the gun and tries to shoot Negan, and she ends up hitting Lucille instead. Not only is he pissed off that someone tried to shoot him, but he's also pissed off that she's just damaged Lucille.
His wife.
In the comic book, he even alludes to maybe having sexual fantasies over the bat.
Wow.
So I mean, he's very, he is unhinged, but you see where it comes from, you see where it stems from, and that's kind of the complexity of the character, is that he does fucked up things, but you know why he does it, and you understand it, and at some points you can even agree with him.
And, he always keeps saying, the strong should protect the weak, which sounds like almost like a mafia protection racket in a lot of ways, and that's the way it's portrayed, certainly in the show. But at the same time, the people underneath his protection in quotes, are working on point systems. Hey guys, we get free vegetables today. You don't have to worry about points. It almost sounds like he's like a communist dictator in a lot of ways.
Well, think of it this way: he genuinely does believe that what he's doing is good. His group is called the Saviors because he genuinely believes that he's installing some sort of order and some sort of actual. He feels like he's the one in charge of creating society anew.
He may believe that, though, but anytime that some group calls themselves something, you always gotta assume the opposite. It's just like any type of bill passed by the U.S. government, Patriot Act, anything like that. It's like usually the exact opposite of what the intent is. So, but you can give a group. I mean, the Nazis could have called. I don't want to pull Godwin's law, but the Nazis could have called themselves Flower Power for all we fucking could have cared. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make their actions any less horrific. And Negan's actions are pretty horrific. Go in, take half of whatever you want, wealth redistribution, and then, establish power through fear, which is fucking horrific. But again, the setting of The Walking Dead apparently has like the governor and rogues out there, looting and pillaging, and there's cannibals and all this other horrific shit that you've told me about. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense for a character like Negan to come along and try to be like the God King, Nebuchadnezzar, or I always attributed Negan almost to Genghis Khan in a lot of ways. He is a conqueror, but at the same time, Genghis Khan built libraries and built systems, and when he conquered territories, he created societies out of them, all these loose tribes. And just from human history, I can see what Negan is trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And even, his whole thing of, the strong must protect the weak. In the comic books, he meets with the leader of this other group of people, where
who you guys are going to be seeing.
Yeah, she believes the complete opposite. She believes that, well, if you really want to survive, you have to be strong enough. Anything that happens to you, and anything bad that happens to you is because you were not strong enough.
I was just going to say it's like the Hollywood interpretation of Nietzsche, but go ahead.
But the thing is that a great example of this is when Negan is in that group, he sees two men trying to rape this woman, which he cannot stand. He, he goes over and he sorts them out, sort of thing. And
he's the Punisher.
Make sure the woman is safe. And he goes to the leader and he says, how could you condone such, this? It's disgusting. And she says, well, if that woman, really didn't want to be raped, she should have put up more of a fight. And he can't stand that mentality because, again, he believes that the strong should protect the weak. and not use their power over them, which is, hypocritical. Because if you think about, what Negan has done, but he kind of realizes that, in that point in the comics when Rick finally gets the upper hand on him, he kind of realizes what he's done. He sees the pain. He sees that despite his best efforts, he's actually caused more pain and more problems than he wanted to.
Right, exactly. I mean, if Negan wanted to be a better ruler, he should be kind of like the guy who has a tiger, whatever his name is.
Ezekiel, yeah.
Ezekiel, the guy with the big CGI tiger. But because what he has is he has a society where the underlings, they do their own thing, but then the strong are genuinely protecting the underlings. They're like knights.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that as well, I want to talk about this quickly. A lot of non-comic book readers who don't know anything that's going to happen in the comics, they don't like Negan because they don't like, at least from what I've heard in a lot of, internet articles, particularly like Forbes.
Forbes has a real fucking contention for
you
Negan.
You look up Walking Dead Negan and look for all the negative articles. Literally, most of the top ones come from Forbes, and they're from the same two writers. I don't know what they have against it, but whatever.
They were picked on. They were picked on by PE teachers when they were kids.
If you look at the comments section, a lot of the people who are complaining about Negan are people who haven't read the comics and who think he's gonna die. And if Negan did end up dying, I would understand their point, because it's almost like, oh, fucking get it over with already. We know how this is going to end. Yeah, he's going to act all big and then Rick's going to get the upper hand. But the fact is, he doesn't die. He changes. And that is why Negan needs to be the way he is right now, to make that change have more of an impact.
He needs character arc.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like, compare it to this, right? Game of Thrones, Theon Greyjoy. When you start off with him, he's going around fucking prostitutes, thinking he's, God's gift to mankind, going around
Cock
boasting.
of the walk.
Yeah, he's going around boasting about, I'm from the Iron Islands, we're a family of warriors, all this shit. And then when Ramsay, you see what Ramsay does to him through the, torture and mutilation. And
he goes from the cock of the walk to the cock on the chopping block.
But I mean, it gives so much more impact, because you see what he was before and you see what he was now, just how broken he is. And
well, same thing with Jaime Lannister.
Yeah, and it's the same. This is what's happening with Rick, and Rick being, the Theon character and Negan being the Ramsay character, but also it switches as well. Negan, sort of gets taken down a peg or two, and you see him start to change. So he kind of needs to be, the bigger and meaner and, cockier he is right now, the more impact that change is going to have when it finally does come.
Right, when he actually becomes more of a hero type character after being imprisoned for how many years, and then, finding some redemption with Rick and his group.
There's even some similarities in the way that Ramsay and Negan, assert their power. I mean, Negan forcing Rick to carry around Lucille while he's, walking around with no guns or anything, because he knows that Rick won't hurt him, is very similar to how Ramsay handed Theon Greyjoy a straight razor and got him to shave him. If he wanted to, he could have slit his throat right there and then, but he knew that he wouldn't, because he knew he had control. Him. Yes, yep. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is why I like the character. He's fascinating. I mean, you can agree with him or disagree with him. I'm kind of on the fence, because I deplore the idea of this authoritarian character who, me and my droogs, to use the Clockwork Orange phrase, can go around and basically steal all your shit. Even if you're working for points underneath me, I can still steal all your shit, and you still got to work for me. Because, it's almost like the samurai class, or even the genuine knights class of the feudal systems, east and west, because the people in power could do whatever the fuck they wanted to do to the peasants, and I find that disgusting. But in the context of at least the comics and the setting, historically it makes sense, because you gotta have a real hard ass to basically wrangle all of these packs of wild feral survivors and try to recreate a society out of it.
Well, think of it this way. Negan is all about control. Everything he does is to get power and control over other people's... like I said earlier, everything is very deliberate and everything is very, well thought through. The people, in the other groups, he makes sure that they can't fight back by taking away the weapons, but he also, which is also important, very, if not more so, he makes sure that they won't fight back. He gets in their head. You see the people, who are in his group. It's almost like some sort of cult. They kneel whenever he walks past, and he says to them, "Oh, who are you?" And they all respond, "I am Negan." It's this very almost like
we are Legion.
Yeah, it's almost like a Manson type thing. He gets in your head, and you start to think the way he does, and you start to agree with what he says and his methods, and you don't want to fight back.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear some weird shit, look up Charles Manson. Yeah, Charles Manson, not Marilyn Manson. Although he has his own cult, but that's just the musical groupies. But some of the shit that Charles Manson did to build his little cult, his little sex cult. I mean, he made people like mirror his movements and mirror his he'd make faces and shit at them, and they'd have to mirror it. And that kind of creates loss of identity. It's the exact same thing he did to everybody else. Who are you? Negan. Who are you? Negan. Who are you? And he points to everyone, and they're all Negan. So he has created a cult of personality in a lot of ways. But it just means that he has that much more loyalty amongst his followers. And that means that people who would otherwise attack the people who he's, quote, protecting, they would be pretty hard-pressed to survive that kind of attack. He's got the numbers, he's got the devotion, he's almost got the resources.
Well, he's also very good at spotting, who would be useful to have around. That's why he doesn't kill Daryl, other than the fact, that Daryl has basically the thickest plot armor in the entire series. But I mean, he knows that Daryl can be a very valuable asset, and so instead of killing him outright, he tries to break him. And that's what you see in those episodes, and it's even watching it is kind of torture. If I ever have to listen to that fucking song ever again, I swear to God, I'm going to slit my own wrists. But it's very interesting to watch, and he's very manipulative, and he's very clever, and you almost... It's very strange. You almost admire him in a way, because of, the way he goes about controlling people, and there's this very sort of intelligent undercurrent that he hides behind his cockiness.
Yeah, I think he's... For being a PE teacher, he's pretty thoroughly read in the 48 Laws of Power.
Well, I mean, this is just an exaggeration of the role of a PE teacher. Or like an army general. He breaks people down and then builds them back up again.
In his own image.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it's so fun to watch, especially when you combine it with Rick's character, who he's almost like becomes kind of like, I don't know, I know you don't know who this is because you didn't used to watch it, but he's almost become kind of like the Shane character, or as you know him, the Punisher. But he's Shane was very much we need to have a firm hand. We can't be accepting random people into our group, and we need to have strict rules and strict things about this, and and Rick was always the more compassionate one. But you kind of need the Shane in this world. You kind of need the Negan in this world. You need someone who can, get shit done, and who can keep you safe.
Yeah, sacrifice safety for freedom, but... I mean, don't get me wrong, I deplore the idea of any type of authoritarian power, but in this setting, a figure like him makes sense. And the fact that it's, the character has this much depth, and it's portrayed by fucking Jeffrey Dean Morgan, for God's sakes. He's oozing with charisma. I mean, it's just like dripping off of him.
Now, let's move away from, us circle jerking over Negan and talk about...
We're not circle jerking over Negan. He's fascinatingly horrible.
I know.
I mean, he's like if Saddam Hussein was a rock star or something like that. It's like, wow, he's a dick, but he gets shit done and he has charisma.
He's almost like a combination of Joffrey and Tyrion.
Oh, I thought you were going to say his combination of Saddam Hussein and like Bono.
It's kind of like he's kind of like a combination of even the Joker and Batman. He's very methodical in his approach, and he knows what he's doing, but at the same time there's just that hint of craziness, and it's really fascinating to watch, especially
from I was going to say from a historical standpoint, he's very Genghis Khan. He's a conqueror, but also a dictator who has some benevolent streak, whether or not it actually benefits people underneath them.
Now let's anyway move away from that and talk about the actual series. I take it you're going to be watching at least until Negan's gone, right?
Probably. I mean, I've already read the comic, at least up till the Whisperers, I believe. But I kind of know what's going to go on. But yeah, I'll stick around to watch Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this. I mean, honestly, it's the only thing that's caught my attention at all.
Exactly, and that's like what I said. Negan is exactly what the show needed. Again, this show has been so depressing. Especially like in the past couple of seasons. Like there was one episode where this Carol and Tyrese, who you don't know because you didn't watch it back then, but they're stranded and they're away from the group because the group's been segregated, and they're looking after Rick's baby, who Rick thinks is dead, and these two other girls, Lizzie and Mika. And one of the girls, the older one, is like kind of unhinged, right? You see it very early in the season, but it gets really bad as the season goes on.
How so? I mean,
like, she believes that the walkers are just, they're trying. The reason they're biting people and turning them into walkers is because they just want us to be like them, and
Oh my God, she must be the SJW in the group.
It's to the point where she goes out, she like feeds them.
They're killing people out of love.
But
I mean,
anyway.
okay, wait a minute. So this girl, how old is she?
I think she's meant to be about, I don't know, maybe like 12, 11.
Okay. But still, anyone who thinks that an enemy is there to be benevolent and be cuddly and be good, in that kind of environment, you gotta get rid of her.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry, but I mean, especially in that setting, you gotta get rid of her fucking fast.
This is what I'm saying is that the younger sister, the younger sister is seeing that she's kind of a freak. But anyway, Carol and Tyrese decided it's a good idea to leave them all on their own and go and get. I think they go to get some water or something, and they come back and the younger kid is dead. Right, the crazy girl stabbed her.
Oh God! See, I told you gotta get rid of these fucking morons.
And she was just about to kill the baby too. Okay.
Oh God.
Now, Carol takes the girl out into the forest, and she tells her to look at the flowers, and she shoots her in the back of the head, Lenny style.
I'm sorry. Lenny, look across the lake and tell me about the rabbits. I get to tend the rabbits, George. Bang!
It's almost exactly like that. But I mean, it's
mice and men. Oh my fucking God.
It's so fucking depressing, and it's week after week after week of this stuff with nothing there to, relight your hope and faith in humanity.
It's a drudge.
They're constantly introducing these new characters that come out of nowhere that you don't care about, who die about 3 or 4 episodes later. Okay.
Fucking hell.
You need someone like Negan because he has this humorous side to him. It's a dark type of humor, but it's there, and you almost need that in a show like this to keep the balance. I mean, imagine if Dexter didn't have like Masuka in it. Imagine if it was just all about him killing people and how horrible and miserable he is, and no one ever cracked a joke.
Yeah, even the little quirks and stuff that Dexter had, getting Bavarian cream donuts and some of the little quips he has and his weird observations about people in general, coming from a person who's a psychopath. It's the same reason why horror movies always have some humorous elements, dark humor or something else, some moments of levity, because even in like Hitchcock movies, extreme suspense, but there's always humor because it's like a little bit of a release valve, because the best directors and the best movie creators realize that you need to have some release of that tension, otherwise it is a chore and a drudge to watch.
Not only that, but you need release of the tension to make the shocking stuff that much more shocking.
And to also, make the... I can't imagine how fucking melancholy a show would be like Dexter if it had no humor. It'd be a chore to watch. It'd be fucking horrible.
And people are complaining about, this whole thing of Negan, but again, he's the breath of fresh air this show needed, because the general formula of this show has been, for the past 6 seasons now, Rick and his group are out. They find a place to stay. They like the place to stay. They start to settle down. oh no, the place gets overrun by zombies or overrun by other people, destroyed. I guess they're out again. Oh, they find a new place. They like this place. They're going to settle down. Rinse, repeat. The same thing over and over again. This is something different. Instead of, constantly moving around, they're meeting other groups. There are different, power dynamics, and there are different really strong characters getting involved. I wish I saw more of Ezekiel, to be honest. I was really looking forward to seeing him in the season, and he was only in like 2 or 3 episodes.
Well, they spent too much money on the CGI tiger.
Exactly, like CGI tigers aren't cheap, But
yeah. Have you ever seen the credits in a Pixar movie? Holy fuck.
And people might be complaining that, Negan is very cartoonish, but again, you need that kind of... It's almost like a suspension of disbelief. You kind of need that in a show like this, just to keep it from being so fucking depressing.
Well, I mean, how is Negan really a cartoon character when we've already seen some dynamic in him?
Yeah, well, again, I think it...
Or is this just like an early review of like the first 2 episodes of the season?
Again, I think it's to do with the fact that Jeffrey Dean Morgan, as great as I think his portrayal is, I think he does a really good job. He does kind of brush over some of the more intricate parts of Negan, or just misinterprets them altogether. And that might not even be his fault. That might be the director.
Well, obviously, it'd have to be the director's fault, because directors are the ones who have control over the series.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a very good actor. I mean, my friends, really like him because he's in Supernatural. I don't watch Supernatural, so I don't really know how he is in that, but apparently he's very good in it.
I haven't seen that in ages, so...
But I think he plays, like, the 2 male leads. I think he plays their dad or something.
Maybe. I mean, the only thing about Supernatural I remember is, like, the first season was kind of like a modern-day X-Files. And then it just kind of went shit from there, so...
It's Tumblr wank bank now. Literally.
Yeah. Twincest?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think they're twins, but whatever.
Well, whatever. It's definitely... There's a lot of incestual shit in there.
Now, the thing with The Walking Dead is that it has a problem, because it's based off of a comic book. And the comic books can go on for years, right? They never... Technically, they would never have to end. This is a TV show, and TV shows are different. TV series need to have an end at some point. Otherwise, you get the fucking Simpsons, where what was once great is now just a pain to watch, because they run out of things to say, they run out of things to do.
They run out of voice actors.
Exactly. And...
R.I.P. Miss Crabapple.
Well, R.I.P. comedy, but...
Yes!
But again,
the Simpsons are dead. Long live. Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is with The Walking Dead is, I don't see a way that they could end the TV show that would satisfy everyone. Because I mean, I don't think it's going to end with them finding a magical cure. So how could it possibly end?
It could just end. Kind of like the end of Gone with the Wind, I shall rebuild, and it's Rick and everybody else like, we shall rebuild, and all the little communities, Ezekiel's and his and whoever the other place is with the fucking painting that everyone faps over, and where Jesus lives, all of them just kind of standing on a hilltop going, we shall rebuild society, and then Negan will be in prison, and ... the end. I mean, I don't fucking know. I hope that's not how it ends.
Well,
but...
if anything, Negan could be a very valuable ally. I mean, there are scenes in the comic book where Rick actually goes to Negan for advice on stuff. And again, Negan genuinely does want to help people. He has a very strange way of showing it, but he generally does. And he gives Rick some solid advice, and he hopes the best for Rick. To be honest, he wants him to be a good leader. And when you see, Rick,
he genuinely likes Rick.
Yeah,
it's weird.
He respects him, and Rick goes out and he tells, he does basically what Negan told him to do, and everyone starts cheering for him. And then it kind of pans to the prison cell where Negan is, and he can hear the cheers outside, and he kind of smiles to himself and is like, "Attaboy, Rick." He's this wonderfully complex character, and that's one of the reasons why everyone loves him.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, I can totally understand that. And Negan also becomes a character that doesn't like Carl like visit in the cell and talk.
He sees him almost as more of a father figure than his own father.
Yeah, he like goes and says, hey, yeah, me and my friends were over at a girl's house and she showed us her tits, and Negan, gives him some almost like fatherly, like, good for you, that's healthy. And depending on who you ask if that's healthy or not. I mean, don't ask Tumblr. You'll be called Nazi.
Okay, so
get punched in the face.
Let's wrap this up. What do we want to see for the rest of the season? We're only halfway through. The next episodes is on tomorrow. What are we hoping to see from Negan from the rest of this season? What do we want to happen?
What I want to happen is that one scene that's hilarious in the comic, where Negan's trying to rally troops against Rick, and he's like giving this long speech about, let's go ahead and swing in our dicks and talking about balls and all this kind of shit. Everyone, all his underlings just kind of look at each other like, what the fuck is he talking about? Negan face palms and says, we're going to war. Again. That had better be in that fucking show, or I'll just quit again. This
is the kind of humor that The Walking Dead needs, and to be honest, there's a lot of humor in the comics that the show practically passes over, which is a shame because it really does need it sometimes. It does feel like such a pain to watch the show sometimes.
Well, especially when you talk about those two girls and one kills the other, and then you gotta go all mice and men on the other one, and it just sounds like
that actually happens in the comic books, but it's right at the beginning, and it's it does have a similar impact, but because it's right at the beginning and because you haven't already had 2 seasons of brooding and misery and all that, it feels more, I don't want to say it this way, but it feels more satisfying to watch.
I mean, nobody wants to spend every fucking weekend getting depressed and wanting to go slit your wrists in a bathtub.
Yeah, I mean...
That's why we elect our leaders every 4 years.
I mean... think about it. That's why despite the fact that a lot of people die in Game of Thrones and there's horrible shit that happens, there's the, every episode there's at least one good thing that happens that cheers you up, and there's a lot of humor in Game of Thrones. Even if it is macabre. I mean, look at the Hound. Everything he says is basically a one-liner. Yeah,
and Tyrion, for God's sakes.
Exactly.
I mean, everyone loves Tyrion because he is the heart and soul of the fucking show.
But
I am the god of wine and tits.
But I think I want to see this season kind of more of Ezekiel, but I also want to see more of Negan interacting with Carl, because I really like those scenes.
Yeah.
I almost want to see Rick building himself back up again in spite of Negan, because as fun as it is to watch Rick get beaten down by Negan, just because it makes Negan seem that much more awesome,
dominating, indomitable.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching a neutered dog in a way.
Watching a dog whose balls got stuck to a fucking frozen porch. Sorry, a Joe Dirt reference, but no, I agree. I want to see more interactions between Negan and Carl, and I just want to see more scenes where Negan is a human being. Because the one thing I fucking can never stand in villains, in anything, is this absolute evil angle. I like complexity. I like, what do you say that George R. R. Martin loves writing about?
He says the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself.
Exactly, and that makes the best villains and the best heroes, no doubt.
And usually the best villains think that they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yep, again, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. So, can't wait to see the return of God Emperor Negan.
Yep. All hail the Emperor. All hail Jeffrey Dean Morgan. You know what was great in The Walking Dead, like the best bit this season? My highlight this season was when he went to Rick's house and was taking all his food, and that lady was there, and she says, you're taking too much, we're literally starving. And he kind of looks at her, and she's really fat, and he kind of looks at her and she goes, starving? You.
Boy, I bet that got a lot of Tumblr hate.
Harsh but fair. Maybe that's why everyone at Forbes hates him.
No, Forbes doesn't lean that way. Salon, maybe. Jezebel, certainly.
Well, they don't know if Negan's not a paedophile, so...
Jesus Christ. I don't know, the way he hangs around with Carl. Almost hangs around Carl more than he does his own fucking wives. Maybe he's batting for the wrong team.